quote for today I have for you, Darwin, is work works. Do your work, your work. Work works, work your work. And this morning I welcome my friend Darwin Roman. I'm excited to talk to Darwin this morning. And I want to jump in right with you, Darwin, on that comment.
That's definitely a profound quote. I like the fact that it makes you really think about it when you're saying it out loud. But I appreciate you being on your podcast today, Maria. It's great to see you. It's been a while, and I'm so happy to be able to connect with you today and share a little bit of my journey. So let's get started.
So, what are your thoughts? We're starting. What are your thoughts about the quote? How does it apply to what you've been doing?
Well, so going back to your quote, I think it's about the essential basics of what it takes to accomplish any goal is focusing on that practicality of work, right? It's not supposed to be easy. It may not be fun all the time. It is work. But if you just apply yourself on a daily basis and just handle the tasks that have to be done, you can get where you want to be. And I feel that's where that quote comes in for me in the sense of work, right? So to go into my journey, and I know we talked about here, my fitness journey of last year, that's all started because of a goal that was something that was put off a long time ago. And I came across this gentleman in 2023, and he's a friend of mine within the circles of real estate, and he was doing a bodybuilding competition.
Who is that?
His name is Andrew Adelman, and he happens to be older than myself. And part of that inspired me because I said, well, he's doing this, he's accomplishing this fitness goals. And I said, how's he going about that? What's his mindset about that? How do you even start? So I had a conversation with him. We had breakfast one day, and I told him about, I've always dreamed, I guess you could say, being on a stage one day and competing in a bodybuilding show. And in that conversation, he said, well, how long have you been thinking about that? And I said, well, right after high school, my first long-term job was in the fitness industry. I worked as a personal trainer. I sold gym memberships from basically 1999 to about 2009. Then 2009, I switched over to another career.
10 years?
10 years. Decade of my life, I was in that space. And I was always around people that were competing as well. So it always intrigued me. But looking back now, I think during that time in my life, I was just making excuses as to, well, my circumstances. I don't have the time. I don't have maybe the resource. I don't have.
I don't have the time. Isn't that the worst excuse ever?
It is
for anything.
It is, and it was different factors as I was within that decade, and the decade with either I don't have the time because I don't want to put in the time. Then eventually, I ended up getting involved with a person. Eventually, got married. And so then it was more of like, well, there's a family involved. I don't have a time because of X, Y, Z. But it's funny how you can always find an excuse to be able to get around, or rather you can say the fact you don't have the time. So fast forward, I'm telling him the story. And he said, what about now? And the reality is that he was kind of lining up my life in the sense of what are my obligations, or what could be distractions, or what could be my excuses. He said, well, you're married now? I said, well, no. Are the kids now? Are the kids in your life now? I said, no. I said, so it's just you now at this point, right? I said, yeah. He goes, so then now, what's your issue now? And he said, listen, you don't have any excuses left anymore, Darwin. And he said, take it from me. If you think that waiting another 10 years to be to my age and starting is the wrong way to go. He's like, so it's 2023. He said, starting 2024, you're going to do the competition. I'm going to introduce you to my trainer, and you're going to take it from there. You're going to connect with him. You're going to start training with him. He's like, a matter of fact, I'm going to do a competition next year as well. Now, by the way, for the people listening to the story, this person happens to be 15 years my senior. So when I'm looking at speaking to him, and I respect his opinion, and I respect his maturity and his wisdom, I said, he's right. What am I going to do? Wait another 15 years and then try? Because he said to me, if I could have started at your age, I would have. And I said, fine, let's do it. And that was it. I just decided the following year, I just made my decision. And I feel that there's something here that I could share that I got from a recent seminar that I was at for leadership, and it's actually the t-shirt I'm wearing here. That
What
you're
is it?
either
Freedom?
it says freedom, but it's called The Edge.
Oh, you were just at the edge?
Last year.
Oh, last year. Okay.
It's The Edge, a leadership summit for men. One of the things I got from that tied into as to what I had just gone through is that you're either interested or committed, right? So it seems like for that decade of my life, I was interested in competing in competing in bodybuilding, but I wasn't committed, or I wasn't ready to commit. And then I decided to commit, Maria, it was one of the most long, drawn out, painful yet exciting, anxious yet liberating experiences of my life, because it pushed me into a direction, or pushed me out of my comfort zone so much that I definitely discovered some things about myself. And at the end of when I was done with the competition, it helped to break some limiting beliefs that I had that I didn't even know existed. Even now,
well, let's talk about that, because that's
Yeah.
really important. What did you notice? What were you made aware of by paying attention to yourself?
I realized that I did have the level of discipline required to accomplish this goal. And I realized that I could do a lot more than I think I can, or that I think I can handle. And so those two lessons proved to be valuable in last year.
What made you aware of that, though? How did it come?
In order to compete in bodybuilding, there's a couple of factors you have to make sure you stick to every day. You have to, number one, eat a certain way. And number two, you have to work out, right? Those are the two main factors. Eventually, you have to start practicing your posing, but that comes a little later in the process.
Sure.
But you still have to live your life. And as you know, with regards to what I do for a living, I work with a financial planning firm for the past 15 years. I'm a publisher of a real estate magazine. I'm the president and CEO of the Latino Chamber of Commerce in New Jersey. So needless to say, I have an active social business life, which means a lot of networking events, a lot of food, a lot of drinking, a lot of going out. And I still have
a lot of excuses.
A lot of excuses, and meaning putting me in situations where I had to exercise my discipline even more, to the point where you almost become the outsider. Because imagine this, I'm going to a networking event, Maria, and you know what this is about in real estate. I go to a networking event, it's open bar, it's food, buffet, spread, that looks great. And I'm walking in with Tupperware of my own food because this is all I can eat. It's rice, it's chicken, it's vegetables. Nothing fun or sexy about it, right? But I'm committed at this point. And I realized that I'm not subject or a slave to my circumstances. That's a big lesson.
That's what it's about. It's about choice, period. Choice.
Hard choices.
Well, hard. They don't have to be hard, but it's just a fact. Like, we make them hard. It's just a choice. We decide, will we do what's required or not? So, like, I'll give you an example. You know, a lot of people in the real estate industry, you're in with NARAP. And for anybody who doesn't know that, that's the Hispanic Real Estate Chamber of Commerce. And many real estate professionals didn't do too well last year or the year before. And that's a choice, because if you decided to be in this industry or any other industry, whatever the industry requires is what the commitment needs to be. It doesn't matter what you did before. What got you there in a market that has been tumultuous is probably not going to get you there again. So the market has required more from real estate professionals in order to eat. And if you don't want to do more, like pick up the phone and work, or however you get business, I find the easiest and quickest and fastest way to turn over business is to call on the phone. Call, email, text.
Call, email, text. There you go.
Call, email, text. Plus, I do some extra little things like videos to my database, priming it, So when they call, they're like, oh, it's Maria. What does she want? She's calling to see they want to sell something. No, usually they're like, oh, hey, Maria. They
Right.
know it's me calling. Now, that's people that have been calling. But the same thing, you make the choice. I didn't make the choice. Am I interested or committed?
There you are. Exactly.
So you're bringing the food, which, it's not the greatest thing if you like food. Some people eat to live. Some people live to eat. There's a difference. Are you a live to eater or an eat to live? What category do you fall in?
Well, if I only had to choose one or the other, it's for this category, it was for eat to live. Right.
Right. But generally speaking, are you that or the other?
I'm neither. I would say I'm in the middle. Like, I don't limit myself. I feel like, look, here's the interesting part. There were times where my trainer said, hey, you know what? It's been a little bit. I want you to, this weekend, go have a hamburger, go have fries, go have a beer. So at that point, I said, why? Aren't I supposed to be eating strict all the time? People used to freak out at seeing what I ate because there's no way, Darwin, you're eating this and somehow you're getting in shape. Do you know I was eating white rice every day? White rice, not quinoa, not brown rice, none of that. White rice.
Yeah, there's something about white rice. I'm not sure what it is. What is it? Do you know?
It's just a simple starch. It's just
easy to digest.
It's really it. But there were times where, yeah, I'd go off and purposely have cheat meals. And so people had the impression that I was starving myself, that I was torturing myself with eating. It wasn't the case. It was consistency. There was a plan behind it, right? I mean, I was 90 to 90% disciplined in my eating, but there was a 10% when you veer off, where I went from eating to live to allow myself to leave for a little bit. So I think there's a balance. You don't have to be an extreme nutritionist every day of your life. If anything, you drive yourself nuts. And you know what? Usually you don't stick to it that long.
Now, that's like one of the things about 75 hard. People do it for 75 days and then they stop. So did you change anything? Like your body might have changed in 75 days, but did your habits change? Because it's our habits, good or bad, that make or break us.
Sure.
Yeah. Whatever they are, it goes back to habits, choice management. What do we say no to versus what do we say yes to? So onto the journey. So when did you start the journey?
So my first day that I started training last year was January 29th, 2024 on a Monday.
All right. So what did the daily meal schedule look like?
So it was 5 meals a day. Breakfast, which is usually eggs and toast and some kind of combination of that. And then 4 more meals following that. Usually based, but definitely based on protein, carb, and vegetables. But the balance of it, by the way, this is the other part that I tend to throw people off. Where they would say, my friends would say, hey, send me your diet. Right. This is like halfway through the process because they're seeing me change. Maybe like 14 weeks in, 16 weeks in. Send me your diet. And I said, well, which one? Well, whatever the diet is or the diet you're doing. You say. Well,
what changes?
I said, well, I have also a diet coach. And I said, it's been 4 months. In the past 4 months, my diet has changed 4 times. So the question is, which diet do you want? They were like, what do you mean 4 times? I said, listen, man. It's like, just because you see me eating a certain way doesn't mean that I'm eating the same way all the time. The ratios will change based on what is looking at me. The coach is looking at me every 30 days. I'm taking pictures.
Of course.
And the diet adjusts. So then people also were thinking that it was either a one size fits all approach or just one magic diet that I was following.
No, not the case. If anybody knows anything about building muscle mass and getting lean, it's constantly evolving based on your body's response to the work that you're doing. And that's life. And that's life. People say they want a magic bullet. There's no magic bullet in any of it.
No.
And you know what you can't ever change? You can't change. And I made XYZ. If I tell somebody else to do XYZ, if they didn't have the past experience that I have at the point where I am in my life, XYZ may not work for them.
Sure, exactly.
So depending on where your friend is, right, that might not work for them. What's their makeup of their body? How much do they weigh right now? How much protein do they need to intake based on their body weight?
Male or female? Start there too. That's a big difference too. So,
100%.
mhm,
So you're training. What's your 5 meals a day,
mhm.
every day? And then what is your training looking like? When did you start lifting? What does that look like?
So the schedule, I meet with the trainer. My trainer's located in Ironbound Fitness in Newark, not far from where I live. And it's every day. I meet with him Monday through Friday, usually at the same time. So last year was 9 a.m. every day in Newark for 1 hour. He and I training. And it was so it was a mixture of either free weights or machines. And then once I finished my hour with him, I do 30 minutes of post cardio.
So your workout schedule was an hour and a half, 5
Mhm.
days a week or 7 days a week?
Week with the trainer. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I go into the gym just to do 45 minutes of cardio. That's it. No lifting.
No days off.
Right. If you get it as a day off, not being in the gym, correct. I didn't have a day off. I was always in the gym in some capacity, right? But the days off that I did have were Saturday and Sunday because I wasn't lifting anything. So my muscles were getting rest, but I was still doing cardio. So I would say it's called an active rest day.
And so when was the competition?
The competition ended up being September 21st of 2024.
So you trained for basically 8 months.
34 weeks to be exact.
34 weeks. So it took 34 weeks from you to go from what percentage body fat or weight or whatever?
Well, I was weighing when I first, day one, I was weighing 175. The day I stepped on stage, September 21st, I was 155. My body fat was roughly 25% on day one, and it dropped down to 5% the day of the competition.
5%. So that's really low.
Very low by the way, and just for that day. It's
Just for
that.
now. And then what did you go back up to 10%?
Yeah, I mean that took
Well,
about 2 weeks. Like because you amazingly enough, your body's so conditioned that after that, sure, I was still kind of following my diet, but I was like, hey, the show's over. I can kind of just enjoy myself and whatever, go out and have a pizza, have a beer, which I did the following day. I took fun out of time. That night I had a burger and beer and fries and because that's the reward, right?
whatever you want the reward to be. With 34 weeks of intense training and following a specific nutrition program. And what were the feelings that you had when you were up there on stage?
It was surreal because I was thinking to myself, wow, I'm actually here. It's almost like you almost think you're never gonna come, and then here it is. Like I'm assuming it's somewhat on a very scale comparable to a childbirth. It's like, all right, you're holding on a child in your body for months, right, as a woman, and then the day comes, okay, it's time to give birth, and you're like, oh, this is like really happening. It's kind of like that shock, like, oh, and then meanwhile, you knew this is gonna happen, like it's coming, like it's eventually this baby's gonna come, and so it's kind of like that. But it was an excitement and anxiety at the same time. So, oh my god, the day's here. But it was a lot of fun. I was looking for that. I got on stage, and thankfully, I tend to be a little bit extroverted, so I wasn't afraid to be on stage. But it was out of my comfort zone. I've been on stage and spoken to people, but this is different. This is me barely wearing any clothes, right?
Basically, almost naked.
Basically naked, vulnerable, and just showing my body, and then having these strangers look at me with a clipboard, just kind of writing things down. I don't know what they're writing, but I'm just looking out into the distance of the crowd, into the lights I can barely see anyway, and just practicing my posing as if I had to put my mind as if I was in front of the mirror at the gym. There's nobody there. It's just me in the mirror. That's really it. It's the best I can do. I can hear the crowd. I can hear people completely. Plus, I have friends and family there. They're clapping, they're yelling out my name. I'm trying to stay concentrated. So it was definitely a challenge there, but it was fun. It was exhilarating. That's why I'll be doing the one this year.
Oh, you are. I was just going to ask. That was my next question. Are you going to do it again?
I'll be doing it again. And some people have said, well, you did so well. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something about interesting that happened the day of the competition, September 21st. So, because I think another question is, well, how'd you place? How did I do? Right. The way it worked.
Interestingly enough, I wasn't going to ask that question, but you can share it. The reason why I wasn't, because in my mind, it wasn't the reason why you were doing it.
Thank you. You're right. You're right. I agree with you. But there's value in the part of the what happened after.
I want to hear it.
So I get to the competition. They put me backstage. And the way it works is there's different categories in bodybuilding. There's bodybuilding, there's classic.
Yeah, there's like 20 different things.
Yeah. But the big ones are bodybuilding, classic, and then physique. So I went into the physique category. And physique is broken down into different categories as well. And I chose 3 categories to compete in. Number 1 was the open novice because it was my first time. So it was called a true novice category, my first ever competition, which makes sense. So that was one category. And then the other category is based on age, over 35 and over 40. So those are my 3 categories, right? Get on stage. I get backstage. There's a director back there. He's lighting people up, all these guys and everything. And he's like, all right, you here, you here, you here. There's a in front of me that was 65 years old doing a competition, right? Such a cool guy. Listening to his story, I was like, wow. I was like, I'm going to be doing that at 65. It'd be great if I could do that at 65. It's like, that'd be great. So he's in front of me. It's me and another guy. And he goes, the director, the stage director, is like, 3 of you on stage because you're all going to be representing your categories. Okay. Again, first time. I don't know exactly what's going on, but I'm just following direction. Go up there. We do our poses, whatever, we get off. I talked to my coach when I got off the stage and said, hey, he said, we're the only ones representing our category. And my coach goes, yeah. He goes, well, you're the only one in your category that showed up today. I go, well, okay. And what does that mean then? He goes, well, you're the only one who showed up. So you get first place. You win. I was like, okay. So then when the medals came out and the section came out, in fact, I got first place for 40 and over, second place for 35 and over, and I placed 5th for true novice, right? And at the end of it, I struggled a little bit because I said to myself, all right, I showed up. I did 34 weeks of training. I drove to Poughkeepsie, New York, which is a good 2-hour drive away from me. Family and friends came out, spend the night out there, spend the night that night too. We rented an Airbnb, all this stuff. I'm like, I went through all this effort and I get here and nobody showed up. So I win by default. Then a negative voice comes up and says, did you really win? Nobody competed against you. All you did was show up. Did you really win? Kind of crazy to think like that, right? And I was like,
no, I don't blame you. Like, I kind of would have been like, oh, I won by default because I'm the only one in the category. I don't know if I would have felt like that was a real win.
Yeah, so exactly. And I was thinking the same thing. Did I really win? Because I didn't compete against anybody. However,
compete against yourself.
Thank you. So
you won.
However, that's the mindset. That's the mindset that took. I had conversations with my friends, my coach, and with my girlfriend, and they were all saying similar threads what you just said. You competed against yourself. Bottom line, you showed up and you win because you did it. You followed through and executed on what you said you were going to do this year. You did it. That's the win. My girlfriend said, she goes, what it tells me is there's no 40-year-old men that are willing to do this. You're the only guy that showed up. I was okay. She's like, that alone sets you apart within your age. And that's why you won. My coach said, listen, people think this is easy or they can do it. And my coach said this, I've had clients quit halfway through this process. He goes, and you didn't. You stuck to it. He goes, even when you kept asking, people kept asking me for the mind job that was going on with me. every couple of weeks, people can ask him, hey, when's your competition? Hey, when's your answer? Because the reality is that the person who was in control of when I was going to compete was my coach. When my coach felt like I looked like I was ready enough, then he was going to, and it took 16 weeks for him to say, okay, guess what, Darwin, we're going to be able to pick a competition now. This is like almost Memorial Day weekend. This is like May. And I'm like, great. I'm thinking June, July. I'm like, all right, coach, when do you think? He goes, all right, I want you to pick a competition in September. I'm like, it's freaking May. I'm like, I'm doing this all year so far. Oh, September. And I'm like, but I want to enjoy my summer and yeah. There was a process I had to go through and I stuck to it. And I'm glad I did. It was really, I think 34 weeks of just that disciplined kind of life. And I'm going to be doing it again. For some reason, maybe I'm a masochist. I'm going to do it again. But the reality is that I'm doing it again to prove to myself that I wasn't just a one-hit wonder, that I could do it again, that I have the capacity to be able to put myself through that voluntarily, knowing now even more what it takes to get to that competition.
Right, because ignorance is bliss sometimes.
It is
right?
bliss. It's a rookie thing and it's excitement, right? It's like, for example, Maria, a first-time realtor getting into the business, and all of a sudden they're doing the open houses, they're doing the tours, and they're driving the buyers, and they sell their first couple of homes. They're excited. Then all of a sudden they trip a little bit, and they hit a dry season or something, or even a dry month, and they think, oh no, this ain't for me. Now I realize in the following year they can do it again, right? But they got to keep that same passion and excitement as of that ignorance is bliss.
And a lot of times, if you knew what you knew, you may not do it again. But here you are to prove that you weren't a one-hit wonder.
Right.
And that's what this podcast, is about. Be the solution. I believe we are our own solution. And if we're not where we are in our life, then it's our own fucking fault.
Correct. Thank you for saying that.
I watch people and I see so many people come to my door and they tell me they want it. And I want to believe them. I used to believe them. Most don't have won't do what is required to be successful. I'd say 98% are mediocre at best. Maybe that's only 30%. The 50% do nothing. Sadly. But that's the industry, and I think it's important when you take things on like this that you're doing, that you share it, you share the journey. It gives people hope. And when you have hope, there's something about that. So it's always like, can we give them enough hope to show up again the next day? And you don't got to worry about 34 weeks from now. You just have to worry about today. And that's what I tell people. Only worry about today, doing the reps for today, making the calls for today, because that's tiny hinges, swing big doors. It's just the daily activities, whether that's eating, bodybuilding, learning how to play a sport, being in sales.
That's right.
It's just today. What can we do today? How has this impacted the rest of your life, Darwin?
Letting go of excuses on the daily tasks, right? I actually have a picture of myself behind my laptop. You can't see it. It's on the wall. After I did my competition, a friend of mine, he's a photographer, and he said, hey, listen, let's take some pictures, man. You're in the peak condition right now, and now it's time to take some photos because you're not going to look like this another week or two. I'm like, you're right. I'm not going to look out just like this, but I'll still look good. He goes, you look good. He said, but not like, this window, we got to take advantage of it. I'm like, all right, let's take some photos. There's a picture of me holding a push-up. Black and white. I'll send it to you later. It's black and white, and I'm facing the camera, and it says nobody ever drowned in sweat. That's the caption, right? And I look, and it's almost like this alter ego, even though I know it's a picture of myself. I look at that picture, and I remind myself that individual at that time and space last year was very dedicated, very focused, went through a lot of shit to get to where he wanted to be. I said, so why am I letting that guy down? Because that's my past. And I think if we all look at it in this perspective of time and space, there's the person in your past, there's a person today in your present, and there's a person in your future that's also counting on you to do the right thing today. So I look at that perspective. That guy was last year. I'm looking at this person today. But there's also a person, there's a Darwin Roman a 65-year-old Darwin Roman currently in the future waiting for me to do the right thing every day. So I look at that. I'm like, all right, well, I got to make sure I make those calls. I deal with this email. I talk to this client. I do this presentation so that I can move forward towards that goal. And whether I like to feel it or not, whether I just got rejected or not, maybe I got my freaking ass kicked today. So what? Tomorrow I got to do it again. Keep pushing. And the other part about it, in working out, the part of the movement is equally as important as and that was something that my trainer kept saying. Work the negative, work the negative, work the negative. Sometimes he goes, the negative is your friend in this situation.
Yeah, the resistance coming down, right? Or
coming down. Depending on what it is. But either way,
depending on what it is.
Yeah.
And if you're lifting like this, it would be the coming down of it.
Yeah.
You're going like
Usually
this.
is. I mean, you're fighting gravity either way, right?
Like that's where the definition comes from, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're fighting gravity either way, but it's either you're pushing away from gravity or gravity's pulling you back. And that's where regardless, either of them are just as valuable. And sometimes losing the deal, losing a client, having a client cancel, whatever it is you do in people watching in your business, sometimes it's just as valuable, just as motivating.
Sometimes not all business is good business.
No.
And there's a thing of opportunity cost. Correct. You get a big client and the big client requires something different. Sometimes big clients, can't work with them because they have maybe their way and their way isn't the way we do it. And then it F's up what we do. So it causes too much disruption to our cadence of speed, time, and distance, which is all business is. Speed, time, and distance. I've been thinking a lot lately. I just got back. We were on a cruise last week, first cruise ever. And I got a norovirus on the cruise.
Oh, no.
So I was sick for 30 hours, puking. Anyway, so I was laying in bed. I just had I got some being sick, but just like staring out in the ocean. I say the magic happens when nothing's happening because when you're in production, like meeting with clients, doing appointments, you're thinking about them, their situation, strategizing for them. I'm a listing broker. So strategizing for them, figuring out the solution to get a lot of times I'm working with clients that have been on the market 1 and 2 times and didn't sell. So I'm like the fixer. And you don't get to really think about strategy, playing chess. It's like more checkers because you go do. Chess is like the business part. And I was thinking about, okay, well, here we are. What if I did these things and stopped doing these things and put together like a little plan? And then I had this epiphany a couple days ago. There's this contest one of our vendors is doing, 30-day listing challenge. So the most listing appointments I ever done in 1 month, I believe, is 43. So I'm like, wow, what should I make it? And my husband's at 100. I said, I was thinking that too. I said, but it scares the bejesus out of me. Even right now, saying it, my stomach is getting like, do you know what it requires to do 100 listing appointments in a month? Do you know even brokers? Do you know 100 in a year?
I know, no. You're talking about 3 days that are in a month. It's like what?
So, and that's every day working, right? March is a 21 business day month. If I add in 2 Saturdays, I got 23 days. So 23 days to do that because I'm not going to be working the other days.
Right.
I mean, I could, but I don't plan to. So you figure out how you can do it in that time. But it goes back to choice management, right? So you had to put that time to you got to drive to the gym, be there for an hour and a half, and drive back. That's 2.5 hours, I'm guessing.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
It adds
2.5 hours. And then on the weekend, call it an hour and a half because you got to drive back and forth.
Mhm.
Okay, so we got 2.5 hours, 5 days a week, 12.5 hours, plus an hour and a half is 3 hours. We got 15.5 hours. Let's call it 16.
Yeah.
16 hours a week. Plus, you got to prep the food.
Mhm.
I'll give that another like 4 hours a week for prep. 5 hours. 5 hours. 20 hours you carve out. So it's all just about carving it out.
And you know what? So that's how many hours I was doing?
20. Carved
20
out
hours.
20.
And then, by the way, the last, I would say, yeah, about the last 8 weeks up to competition, I was also going to the gym Monday through Friday, the usual morning session, right? And at night, go back and do another 30-minute cardio session Monday through Friday.
Yeah. Well, that's because you're like getting shredding now, right?
And then on top of that, he wanted me to Monday through Friday commit to 30 minutes of posing in front of a mirror.
So you had to add that in. But
An hour right there.
if you think about breaking that down, we just broke down for people. Like someone said, how are you going to do that? Everybody said, how are you going to do that? Okay, well, here's the hours I'm going to do it. So I wrote down this. I wrote down a little trusty little, I use Slack. So I Slack myself notes. Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen. So I wrote 18 hours on the phone should produce 18 appointments. 18 appointments, even if it's times 4 equals 60. Now I need 4 from Helen each week. She calls for me 3 hours a day. So I need her to give me 1 appointment a day. Now that's 16. Now I'm at 76. Now I need 24 from marketing. So we send out marketing letters and stuff. So that's 6 per week. If Helen doesn't give me the 16, I need to get 16 more. If I can't rely on that. 4 more hours on the phone a week. So 21 hours on the phone. I've already time blocked it. So I need 25 hours a week to prep and have the appointment. This is assuming I don't leave the office. So now I'm up to 41 hours without doing anything else. So I wrote start day 7:30, end day 7:30, gives me 60 hours plus Saturday, whatever I got to do. Wake up 5:45. And I wrote some other stuff in regards to what else I'm going to need to do at that time, because I'm going to need to go to the gym before, because I'm going to need that extra mindset. And I'm going to need to have my food prepped on Sundays, because I'm not going to be able to be cooking meals every night at 8 o'clock. So cook, freeze, package stuff up. And I make, I'd say 90% of, because we eat out maybe 2 times a week, only 2 meals a week, I mean. And this way, I'm not wasting time or energy or thoughts about food. And I don't eat because you have to eat. I love like eating good food, like healthy food, but we're like foodies, we like good stuff, but we're not sitting there eating like McDonald's or burgers or anything like that, unless we make them homemade. But I'm bringing this up because it's exactly the same thing that you did. Not exactly, but it's the premise of it is, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
The premise of it is, it's like 100 appointments in a month, doing a fitness competition. It's a change in what's here.
Right, exactly.
I'm not comparing the two. I'm saying that it's a change in your choices. It's a change in the limiting belief. Who said you
Right.
can only do 43 appointments in a month? Who said you couldn't do whatever it is you want? Nobody. It's made up.
Exactly.
Isn't that the point of it all? We make up stuff in our head. You made up a story that you really didn't win.
Yep. Exactly.
I'm stupid like that too. I would have made up the same stupid story, because we have that little thing going, you suck, you're an ass, you don't know what you're doing. And meanwhile, it's like, the devil. Our brain is our worst enemy. Who's your favorite podcaster you're listening to right now?
I like listening to Brad Lee and also Andy Frisella. I followed Andy Frisella when he was the MF CEO project, like back then.
Awesome. I know both of them. I don't listen to them I have listened to them. I don't listen to them religiously. You know, I was listening to a lot was Ed Milet.
Oh, yeah, that was doing the best.
Um,
I'll bounce
I'm,
around. I'll watch a
I'm,
YouTube video. Yeah.
I'm kind of like um, back and forth. I like Myron Golden. I don't know if you know him. Oh, he's really cool. Look him up, Myron Golden.
Okay.
Dean Graziosi, Tony
Oh, Dean
Robbins,
Graziosi, yeah.
but Russell Brunson.
Oh, I know of him, just not know.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. And then I just finished reading a book on commercial real estate. I got some really interesting tidbits from that. That was part of right on the cruise. That was some of the info that I came up with, about this list of 500 clients, and it was little stories. I didn't say, Darwin, tiny hinges swing big doors. It's little changes that make all the difference.
Yeah.
The little. So, the question for you: what's your guilty pleasure?
With regards to food,
Anything.
anything. Well, I will say, okay, how about this? Guilty pleasure really is I love movies. I love movies, and so I like going actually to a movie and having as much popcorn as possible and then drinking soda and just that's it, just zoning out and just being fully immersed into the experience of what I'm watching.
Awesome. I haven't been to a movie since before COVID. It's not that I don't like it. It's I got a little freaked out going there, and then the kids, yeah. But we watch them. We watch on Netflix.
Sure.
Yeah, it's in working and thinking.
Exactly.
Take a little movie break.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of know what you might say about the next question, but I'm going to ask anyway. What are you most excited about your future?
Okay, yeah. So my upcoming competition, I'm doing it again this year. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the direction that my businesses are going right now, and also the process of who I'll be by the end of this year. It's just constantly compounding effect of getting better and better, and that's what I'm excited about. And I just had a birthday about 3 days ago now.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, and I've been now embracing year as just another chance, another chapter to write. And thankfully, I'm one that has the pen, and I get to choose how the story ends.
You get to choose the story.
Exactly.
It's all up to us, our own story. I'm dreaming of my story in Italy.
That's a good story.
We love it. Yeah, we love it there, and I'm going to figure out how to get there for more than 20 days.
There you go. Nice.
Well, it was great to see you. Thank you so much for spending time with us this morning on Be the Solution podcast. An amazing and inspiring story, Darwin. And like I said in the beginning, work works, work that work.
That's right. Work that work. Thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. Honored.
My pleasure.